Hello, everyone. You're listening to week 18 of Monday Night Chats with Dazz, and I'll just wait for everyone to come in. But I was expected to have a couple of guests on. I gave them the Hangout code. I don't know if they're still going to be on. I haven't heard from them since I messaged them earlier today. They messaged me a while back, but I always am late to get back to people. But let me look over in the chat and see who's in. Hi, Roused. One thing that I'm thinking about doing, and hi, Andrew C., is I remember probably like almost a month ago now, the idea of a dream stream was mentioned. I didn't realize this, but 2 weeks out from today is the anniversary of the first upload on this channel. So I figured, to celebrate the anniversary, that doing the dream stream would be appropriate for it because of that. So if you're interested, on February 26th, so 2 Mondays from now, or I guess 1 Monday away from this Monday, and you're interested in sharing any dreams or like any experiences of like astral projection or anything of that nature, just let me know. Email me, message me, and I can get you the code for that day. I've shared a lot of my dreams, but I'll try to come up with dreams I haven't shared yet either for the stream, but it'll be the dream stream on the 26th. So I see that Life Trying Again, hi. Josh S, hi Josh S, hi Alex Valdez, and hi Nunya. So just looking in, I don't see, because one of the guests was Craig and the other was Ben, which are in the chat quite frequently, but since they're not here, if you guys have any like thing you want to address or talk about, it's been a busy week for me, for one thing. Again, I guess that's part of being a senior in college, but I felt like I was coming down with something, and actually that really makes me think about like now when I'm coming down with any sort of sickness, the first thing I think about is this whole flu, because it seems like a lot of people, more than normal, are dying from the flu, and a lot of these vaccines aren't working, and I'm not a fan of vaccines. They're really pushing the whole people are dying from the flu to get more people to vaccinate themselves and their children. And let me see if I can pull this up on this screen real fast. Sorry, guys. I have like a lot of tabs open. I'm like away from the chat for a few minutes. Okay. I see that. Hi, Ben, and I see he says his link isn't working. Hi, Vanessa Martinez. And Josh S said take lots of vitamin C and vitamins to combat the flu. Andrew C said few months left before your graduation, before your graduation, which will come fast. Very true. So enjoy the last few months. And Josh S said nowadays I wouldn't be surprised if they're engineering super flus on the public on purpose. That's how I feel too. And forgive me, guys, if like you can hear the fan of my laptop. I don't know why my computer fans like are louder than normal, but Ben, let me try to send you the link really quick. But it does seem like they really do want to. For one thing, if more people die from the flu, that's population reduction. But then also it scares more people in perfectly healthy people and make people susceptible to other issues. Okay, real fast, I'm going to try to email you, Ben, again, the code, just because I don't know why it's not working. Maybe it's because when I did it, it was before we got on air, but let me see. All right, the Hangout code was sent again, and Andrew C. said, I feel like it's the chemtrails. I agree with you, Josh. I see Vanessa Martinez is saying. Andrew C. said birds are falling from the skies too, dying. Hi, IXWR13, and I see that he said, sick or no sick, you are our dazzling one-day voice. Get well soon. Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you guys can tell. I mean, I felt a lot worse earlier today, and I've been having like a lot of like muscle cramps from this, but hoping it'll pass because tomorrow I really can't miss school because I'm supposed to be doing some entire presentations. So it's the worst time to get sick right now, but it's also February when lots of stuff is going around. And I agree with all of you that are saying like chemtrails have a lot to do with this because just the stuff that they're always putting in the air is bound to make people sick. There's too much air pollution, and a lot of it's coming from, is being manufactured. Hi, Armando Beck. And I see that he said, I received a flu shot and still got sick. I never catch the flu. Sometimes I don't know what to do. Believe in this world no more. Andrew C. said, your voice sounds weird. Sounds like a technology issue. Okay, let me really fast mute my mic and then try to come back on and see if that fixes things. Oh, I see that Ben's here too, but let me mute my mic real fast and bring it back on.
I guess that I could entertain you guys for a small minute.
All right. Do I sound robot-y to any of you guys?
No, you're good.
Okay. And then Ben, I see that you're on air with me.
Yeah.
But I can't hear you.
Oh no.
Even better drug.
Wait a minute.
What's this happened?
Something's playing in the background. All right, Ben.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess it was because my laptop I had the volume muted. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. That's fine.
But how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm just a bit of a long day, so. But, I've actually been, as I've said to for before, I've been looking into the Georgia Guidstones for a little bit now, and what I've sort of come across is that the stones talk about I mean, it sort of links to the whole like conspiracy of like the sort of depopulation of the earth and things like that, because the stones are written in different languages. I think it's Mandarin, Arabic, and English, and they talk about for those of you who don't know in the chat, that it talks about the sort of how humanity should live on Earth. It talks about the sort of range of the human population, how courts should be run. Obviously, it's very vague rules, but they're rules nonetheless. And then there's like this sort of stone tablet on the floor of this, and it says, a small group of loyal Americans seeking the age of reason. And the only book I could think of that had the title The Age of Reason was The Age of Reason by Thomas Paine. And from what I could look at The Age of Reason for, it was him almost giving his thoughts on religion. Now he was Thomas Paine was a religious man. He just didn't follow the different institutions in the world and all at the time, obviously. And he felt that God lived in his home, in his mind. His church was his home, his wherever he went, rather than the built cathedral, built like Gothic churches back in Europe. And he was a very independent man, and he fought for the French Revolution and for obviously the American independence. And so my thinking is that a group of people who have came to America, their descendants, then pick up the books of Thomas Paine and say, you know what, we're going to try and follow his sort of his thinking, his ideas, and leave something for people to look at and to try and guide themselves. And the people who created the stones must have been at least, because the Guidstones were put up in, I think, the 50s. The idea of the stones was put up in the 50s, but the actual stones were, I think, actually chiseled and put up in the 70s, if I'm not mistaken. And I feel that connects to the depopulation, things that we keep on hearing about, especially recently. But would people be against depopulation? Is depopulation a thing where we don't need it, or will it get to a point where we have to think of things like this? Is the
Well, I guess, Ben, it depends on who you ask when it comes to depopulation, because of course, scientists and all today are saying that there's too many people on the planet and there's not enough resources. So, they're advocating for depopulation, certain people having less children. While other people don't believe that there's too many people on this planet, but it's more like a way of getting rid of certain groups of people to, keep the resources to the 1% or the elite, those at the top. So, when you're talking about the Georgia Guidestones, I looked up the year. It said it was built in 1980.
Yeah.
And, I see that Josh asked, because I'm checking back here in the chat. He said that there is a stain on the top of the stone, which could be blood stained from sacrifices. You can only see it aerially, which I'm not entirely sure about that. But I wouldn't be too surprised. But sorry, Ben, what were you gonna say?
No, I just said I haven't saw that, but from what I've seen with the stones, they've been defaced a few times. While obviously, with being in the sort of conspiracy theory, just looking about and never questioning things, even though I might look at things, societies like the Freemasons and the Illuminati, I don't think it's I guess appropriate for people to just go and deface like stones that necessarily haven't harmed them, or you know, it's a inanimate object, but there's a lot of like things where something has been put up by these people, and it does provoke a reaction in you because you see these symbols or see these things that the Illuminati or different organizations affiliated, or the Freemasons, or whoever you may be looking at, and you see these symbols and you feel a reaction within you, and you're like, well, I want to go destroy it. But
Yeah.
I feel that it's, even if it's part of something terrible, leaving history up for their people to see is probably the best thing we could do, because it lets people know, hey, look at this really old statue that people have never really even turned. You know, like you have all these statues everywhere where you go that have history and a meaning behind them, but no one looks at them twice. While people in like theory communities and different, like, you know, historical trusts and things like that, they know the history behind them, and they like to look at the history, and it might be terrible, and it might be to do with things that you might not agree with, but it's better to leave it up there than to deface such things. Like
So
even though, sorry, go on.
more along the lines of like leaving things be rather than, you know, people doing it as an act of protest or defiance to whatever the statue represents.
Yeah, because like even though like the huge owl statue in the Bilderberg, I don't know what you call it, compound, like a, you know, like place, like the park. I would say if it was ever to happen that the Bilderberg sort of, like, as I said, like compound was to say become defunct, and no one uses it, that I think tearing it down, or tearing this place that they've set up down, would be almost a waste, because then it gives people the chance to look at all this stuff and be like, wow, this actually happened. Because if you tear it all down, no one will know what's happened before.
I mean, I see what you're saying, I guess, from like a biblical perspective, since I know that, you know, you're agnostic, for like those who don't know that about Ben.
Yeah.
Some would say that though this like, say like a statue like the owl was Moloch, so it would be a symbol. It would be idolatry. So they'd feel like by getting rid of it, they would be doing something, you know, to getting rid of something that would be an idol. I guess from that perspective as well. And I just think about like war, even when people, you know, there was an act of war, people would tear down the old civilization statues and put up new statues because, you know, the culture had changed or the civilization had fallen into new hands.
Yeah, that's why I would have loved to go to, if I had a time machine and I wanted to go back, I'd love to visit places like Constantinople and Baghdad, and these places where so much history has taken place, but the ruling regime somewhere has come along and tore down all its history and its religion. While people may say that pagans, obviously, they're you know, whichever god you believe in, it doesn't matter. The history, like, I really love history, and if you tear down things that have a history and have a meaning behind them, it just leaves historians to just go, why is this burned down? And No one knows, like no one like will know certain things because that history is gone.
Backing up a little bit, just to what you were saying about Thomas Paine. So you're saying that the Guidstones were inspired by his writings.
Well, it seems to be anyway. Because it's a group of loyal Americans and loyal to America and its founding. Because Thomas Paine almost like basically started the independence movement, the revolution, you could say, um, for America. And you could say that these people are being loyal to Thomas and his ideals for America. He didn't want Thomas Paine didn't want the church and state to be together. He wanted them to be separate. He wanted America to be very independent of the rest of the world and loved the idea of America.
So do you look
And
at the Georgia Guidestones as maybe, like from your perspective, something that's not as negative as other people see it?
yes, but I would also say that although I don't see it as negative as some people would see it, like people try and connect it to the Illuminati and things like that because of the similar points of view. But if the Illuminati is a secret society, the 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 people in the society would most likely be generational. So having similar goals to people before you or people who you have seen in past, like in your society that they've taken beliefs from, then I think that would be more of a connection than actually having it be a direct link to the sort of like secret societies. More that it's the secret societies sort of obviously if they are human, which I would not know. Let's just say that if they are human, then most of their members would either be like indoctrinated in sort of like the Nazi youth, or it would be a generational thing. So their sons or daughters would take the reins every generation.
That
And so,
actually raises another question since you brought that up. Talking about generations, since talking about like the Illuminati, because often people think of, the Illuminati or, the different secret societies kind of keeping the same ideas for centuries, like them kind of sticking to the same beliefs since since 1776 with Adam Weishaupt. So, do you think that the current generation of, I guess, those in power right now, do you think their ideas have evolved somewhat from what, say, the founders, or, it's true that they might have the same agenda in mind. And, I'm going to always take the perspective, as someone, of faith, that it's to set up a new world order, to bring the Antichrist. And it might be different, like from what what you see it as, because like we were talking about, differences in belief. But do you think it's evolved maybe since its founding?
I mean, if you take it from just the 1700s as they were German bankers and engineers and philosophers, that they've had those set of ideals, and the ideals would mostly stay the same. But I think in any case, if they, again, like since obviously there's so many theories about aliens, living among us, and different theories on who the Illuminati are and where they come from. I think the ideals would stay the same, but if they are human and they are from the same regions and and it's generational, then they could change in face of adversity.
So, like, adjust their plans if, say, something goes wrong or they realize there's a new challenge that's come about.
Yeah. And if I was running a world secret society to control most, if not all, of the world's governments, I wouldn't I wouldn't be so direct with my actions. Which means you're giving a lot of people a lot of slack. Which I think would mean that a lot of the events that happen on Earth would be by chance, but certain big events that seem almost orchestrated would be by them.
So this kind of reminds me of like Revelation of the Method. You know that idea of Revelation of the Method?
No, I don't actually.
Okay, I did a video on it like maybe almost a year ago now, but pretty much it's this idea that they like to show us things like, say, through movies, through books, you know, through TV shows, and put it in plain sight to reveal to us what their plans are, and then basically carry them out. And in a sense, it kind of creates denial among regular people, because it's like one of the most common, you know, things I hear from skeptics of, you know, a shadow government is, well, if there was a shadow government, why would they leave so many, you know, like, you know, breadcrumbs here for you to follow? Why would they, you know, have all these symbols blatantly there? Like, obviously there's not one, because if they were secret, they would remain secret. Do you think it has anything to do with kind of that, even like what you were saying with them carrying out large scale conspiracies or false flags?
I mean, it very well could be. I think with art and the like art, performance arts, like the whole creative genre.
Yeah.
It either comes from inspiration or imitation. Now, you could see it from both the ways. That the Illuminati is putting symbols out there, which is making people imitate those symbols into their art.
Yeah.
Or they're being inspired by those symbols and using them in their movies and in their TV shows. But there's also a thing of that if the Illuminati is working with the government and the government wants to use those symbols as psychological triggers or different, like, sort of like subtle messaging, they could, but you wouldn't know their true meaning unless you actually were working in that area and you had the class of, you know, you had the security level to know what the symbols mean, what they're used for. Do different symbols work together in tandem? If they are just on their own, do they even work at all? Like, you know, it's...
Well, it kind of going back even like to what you were saying, even with them, like people just in like, great, slipping my mind the word, imitating.
Yeah.
Like, but say like for those of us, you know, who believe in the, you know, supernatural aspect of it, say these symbols have like power spiritually. Even if the people see it as just like, oh, I'm imitating these famous artists, because you see like a lot of like low grade artists who maybe they're just making a music video in their basement and they decide they're gonna, you know, spray paint, you know, the Eye of Providence in the background so they can look like, you know, the real celebrities, even if they're just imitating it. I mean, in a sense, aren't they kind of like being inducted in a sense into like the occult ritual without even knowing it or even believing it? Like, they may think it's a total joke, but if there's some kind of spiritual influence behind it, they could be kind of practicing it without even knowing it. And as you brought up, even with art, like just kind of, because I know like just from talking to you, offline, even like you're into like music and all.
Yeah.
And even myself, like writing, there are we are influenced by the things that we read, the things that we listen to. Even when you go to write a song or to make a song, or I go to write a story, even stuff that we may not necessarily agree with, or even stuff we may not necessarily like, we're just influenced by it. Like you said. So but I totally agree with you, though, on imitation and inspiration, and how some people, some people are literally just imitating. Some people are inspired by it. But I think on a spiritual level, that in a way they're still contributing to the energy that's going out there, that's being put out for them.
No, I sort of like, if the if the supernatural has that kind of influence over the world, then yes, definitely. I mean, the only question would be that, like, what symbol are they? Because like because isn't the Eye of Providence just the Eye of Horus from Egyptian mythology, or am I being mistaken?
I mean, it goes back to that, and
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of like even Masonic symbols that go back to like other civilizations, like ancient Egypt was like one of their hugest influence.
Yeah, and that's with like even with speeches and words. I feel that if someone says something now, and then you look back maybe a few hundred years, and someone has already said that speech, is that by, like, you could say divine influence or spiritual influence, or is that just the probability of someone saying those words repeating? And that's what I've looked at as well, that the way that cultures move, like the way that cultures go from one place to the next. The Roman Empire was small. It was very small. They were a small, tight knit group of people, and they didn't really conform to really anything. And then as they conquered more land, they conformed to certain styles militarily, economically, socially, politically. I mean, they basically ripped off the Greeks. I mean, it's like you look at like the bands, like Oasis and things like that, and they just rip off songs from different people, but just change it a little bit. And that's what the Romans were basically doing. But then the Romans started to have their own form of political discourse, have their own form of like trade routes, and also have their own language and culture and things. But then, as their decadence started to slowly grind their bureaucracy to a halt, then that's when a lot of the barbarians started to say, you know what? I don't like Rome. I don't like Rome. I don't like how my decisions are made in Rome. And they started to fight back, and they destroyed Rome. And then the West crumbled first, and then the East rose. The Eastern Roman Empire rose out of the ashes of the Western, which had the feud between the Roman Catholic Christians and the Hellenic pagans of the Roman people. And that's how I see most other civilizations move that way, is that they start off small, grow and grow, and then once some sort of religious or social division happens, it just crumbles. And that's happened with also China several times, because a certain empress or emperor fell, and it's like, oh, civil war again.
it seems like civil war is like just like a, I hate to say it, but it's almost like a natural part of having a civilization. Like there's, I can't think of a civilization that like has been around for quite a long time that hasn't had a civil war or civil wars, plural.
Yeah.
And like you said, a lot of it's warring over like ideologies or, beliefs. And even like, the idea of like, the coexisting of too many differing views and how long that can really last before, or even sometimes economic interests drive that too as well, but it's pushed as being something that's has to do with ideology as well.
Yeah. I feel, even though I'm not very religious, but that's not because of any thing like oh I'm an atheist and I just don't like religion or things like that. It's just that I feel that I just don't know enough about the other religions and the whole sort of philosophical journey that I would need to take. It's like going into a race without knowing how to run. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying. What was I gonna ask you? I know it's a little different where you live in Scotland. Are more people like less religious where you live, or because where I live right now, like in the United States, it's been touted, as being very like Christian, very Protestant.
Yeah.
But I mean, different segments of the United States are more Protestant than others. Some may be more Catholic, and like at least where I live, it's a common thing for people to identify with Protestant Christianity, even
Yeah.
if they don't necessarily even really read the Bible or know what's inside of it. But how's it like where you live?
I would say most people don't like they're either like non-practicing or or they go to church like a lot. Um and the divide between Protestant and Catholicism here is very apparent. And that's and it's not in the fact that um like there's like a big divide in Scotland, like we're very nationalistic. But when it comes to football, when two teams are from like a more Protestant sort of Scottish background, while another is more Catholic and more Irish, it tends to go on those borders rather than like people would see them more selves as like more from the UK rather than from Ireland. And those are like the sort of two main factors between the sort of religious, you could say turmoil, but it's way less than that. It's more just a sort of heritage thing than religious.
I see. And I guess my second question, it kind of does branch off the first, is like, is there a difference even generationally, maybe, like, as times change? Like, where older generations say maybe more, we're practicing more than younger generations, or vice versa?
I would say a lot from probably the older generation and probably Glasgow would be very a bit more, at least a bit more religious than mine. Um, but again, I think Scotland is a very, you could say, mundane place. And since religion has taken a back step in sort of like in sort of the social discourse in Scotland and England, where it's more Scotland wants to be independent, and then we're and then we vote for an independent, a referendum, and then don't get it. So, and then the whole EU and Brexit stuff is happening. So religion and sort of like supernatural stuff has taken a back step, at least for now.
With Brexit, can you talk a little bit more about that? Like, what's going on with that? Because I know that it seems like they're like um, holding you guys back from really being able to move on that.
Yeah, like basically, we have a incompetent leader who is trying to do talks and deals with the EU and try and get the best deal, but I don't think it's going so well. I feel that the like David Cameron stepped down and then Theresa May stepped up, and she just isn't a very aggressive leader. She's very passive. She seems to rely on a lot of her cabinet. She's not. She tries to be like the next Margaret Thatcher, but she just, I don't know. She just feels very incompetent to me. And I don't know how the EU deals are going in. I mean, in the media, at least they're saying it's going pretty bad, but I'm not buying closed doors, so I wouldn't necessarily know. But I mean, and I'm going to hopefully move, hopefully within like the next few years, so it shouldn't be too bad. I'm hoping I just become a third world country just straight off the gate, and that'd be great.
Where do you plan to move, if you don't mind me asking?
Probably Korea, Japan, in Asia. Because I'm wanting to do like events managing and things like that. So the entertainment industry over there is doing very well. So I'd probably get a lot of work over there.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's just kind of practical because if I go to, I mean, if I go really anywhere else, I mean, I don't want to go to Europe right now because that's a whole can of worms I don't want to crack open. I'm thinking maybe Eastern Europe. Maybe if I feel that's cheaper and I feel like it's not going to be as much hassle. Um, I might go to America, but I really can't say at this point. But my first destination would most likely be Korea or Japan, things like, Asia generally.
I mean, it does seem too like the whole K-pop market too, just like that's becoming more even mainstream within the West as well. Like I'm seeing more K-pop artists be featured, more people I know that listen to that sort of music. So it's like growing in its international influence as well.
Yeah, like as well as that, but also Chinese movies and they're becoming a bit more just better produced, and they're getting better equipment and things like that. So it's becoming a bigger sort of industry over there. So hopefully I'll get some good work over there. But I know what you mean with the influence of K-pop and the other like Asian music genres. But yeah, it seems like I could get at least I could be working for like a K-pop company, I guess, if it, you know, spread that Korean language everywhere.
Do you know like Korean, or are you learning the language?
I'm going to be learning it quite soon. It's just that I don't I'm getting like sort of just getting everything ready. I've got a few books on it, like PDFs, and I'm also going to be just like listening to like the radios and things like that. I'm just like sort of gathering all the research and information I can before I start diving into it.
And I know you said you wanted to do that like after you finish school. You have like a couple years left, right?
Yeah, I've this year, next year, and then I might go into uni. Um, but who knows? Only God knows.
Yeah, so it works differently for you guys over there. So you do like, is college and the university different?
Yeah,
Okay, because like when I think of college, I'm thinking of like community college here, where some people they opt out of going straight to the university. They do like a couple years and they get their certificate to work, or they just transfer.
yeah. Our like system goes what would be elementary to you, then primary school, and then high school, and then college, and then uni. But like high school isn't like you don't like college usually isn't like a big it isn't like a big campus usually. Um it's just a building you go into and then you just do your classes and then you go back home. Um cuz from what I know is that the American and like Canadian colleges are like big campuses and there's actually like tons of dorms.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, yeah, the universities are, the colleges not so much, but I'm hearing now that they're actually trying to expand some community college to include like dorms so that people can live on campus of community college too now,
Yeah.
which would be a pretty interesting change to implement. But yeah,
Yeah, I think it would be interesting. I mean, I again like I just been I've only like this is my second year in college and then I'll get my what's called a HNC and then I'd get the next um and then I get HND which is then like the next degree and then go into uni and hopefully do at least 2 years there and then go work and realize that I am underprepared.
I mean, I think most people coming out of school, I mean, even those who like know exactly what they're gonna do, it's still hard to feel like completely prepared. It's one thing to learn, it's another thing to put it into practice.
Exactly. It's it's a it's a well it's a big world out there, flat or round. Uh,
Yeah,
it's out
I
there.
don't I don't see like I don't know in the chat right now, but I don't see like a lot of diehard flat Earth people in chat right now.
No, it's like I was talking to one of my friends like I think at least a week ago about this, and he was saying that like it does it really matter, and I was like it's sort of true. I mean even if it was flat or round, I'd rather. I mean I'm just trying to live my life, you know. It's if a disc is floating up or the world is spinning or if we're living inside a giant's eye or another one is like if the you know if we're all just like if this is just all like just in my it like oh this is almost my imagination and I'm actually in a coma somewhere um that this is a pretty fun dream, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think, talking about flat Earth, round Earth, hollow Earth, like I said, I haven't explored concave Earth is interesting for sure.
Mm. What would be I've seen like people mention that like if the sort of flat Earth map that people use is on longitude lines, or is it latitude? I can never get those two words right. And it's like, because the longitude lines, it's projected on a 2D space, is that if the world was round, the only correct distance you would get is from north to south, like those longitude lines. Anything going from any other 2 points would be incorrect. So like trying to measure from like the east of Australia to the west, it would be a longer distance on the flat Earth map than on, like, say, one of the globe, or on, like, say, Google Maps or something like that.
Yeah.
Like,
actually, too, that made me think, even like when you think about like ley lines, how that would work on a flat Earth, like on the different Earth models. So I do
yeah,
believe ley lines exist, but like I think about the positioning. I mean, maybe it'd be about the same, but it does make me kind of wonder about that as well.
yeah, like it's very. I mean, it's kind of interesting to talk about, because whether it's I saw this tweet, which was pretty funny. Elon Musk put shot up his car into space. I guess that's the new billionaire thing to do. But he tweeted this out, and then the Flat Earth Society tweeted back that he said something about Mars, and he said, like, how come Mars isn't flat? And then the Flat Earth Society tweeted back that we have observed Mars to be round, therefore it isn't flat. And it's like people's like replies like, well then I've observed like Earth to be round and blah blah blah. I'm like, oh no, don't do this to yourself. Don't put an opinion out there on Twitter. It's
Yeah, Twitter, when people put opinions out on certain topics, just like politics, round or flat or other things, they're probably gonna get super attacked.
Yeah,
or,
it gets
super
heated.
support, depending on who reads it and sees it in time.
Yeah, and like I mean, since I've grown up in the age of the internet, I am very into memes and going around digging around on the internet for different sites and things. And obviously you like said it in a joking manner, but meme magic, I think, can like obviously it doesn't, like, it's not like a staple in like your ordinary sort of witch coven, but meme magic is it's a very specific type, where it's almost like a hive mind. Like, if any of you in chat, I wouldn't recommend it, but if any of you have browsed 4chan, then you would know that it's almost like it's only maybe a few thousand people posting, but it seems like 20,000, because they post like every like single like 10 seconds, and they're all about different topics. But when there's one thing that just like grabs their attention, like Shia LaBeouf, he tried to put up this like art piece called "He Will Not Divide Us," and so like all these sort of sort of very like progressive people started to come up to this like camera and chant "He will not divide us" over and over again, and then people from 4chan would come in at night and just do whatever they wanted for like straight like 3 hours, and then leave. And Shia would get so like really like frustrated, and it was it was great to see this Hollywood star putting up this art piece and being like, yes, you know, trying to like stick it to those people who don't think like me, and then his stream gets shut down. So when people have a singular goal and it's like a hive mind community, it can produce some amazing results.
I mean, when you talk about meme magic, it makes me think of like the modern form of like sympathetic magic that people used to do on like the walls of cave paintings.
Yeah.
The same kind of principle where, because I think magic, a lot of people, they think of it very, like witch in a cauldron kind of thing.
Yeah.
A lot of it is done through thoughts, and that's why I think a lot of my interest too is in like even just like social engineering and like how they get us as like a society and collectively to agree upon things or even bring things into fruition. And then like you're saying, you have people on 4chan or like, individual groups of people, internet groups who seem like they can come together and they can make things happen off of games, which is kind of crazy to think about. But it is like the modern form, I guess, of sympathetic magic.
Yeah, like I just had the like thought magic. Like, would you say that if enough people believed in something, that thought that like thought of that one thing, and it was cohesive, it was consistent, that it would create a powerful being?
Well, that's the concept of like what I've heard, like an egregore, where people, they get together like in a covenant, they create like a spirit, or even individuals can create like a spirit that's made out of their thoughts. I really think it's already there, like it's already exists, but I think spirits attach to like our thoughts too. Because I think like, especially like demons, for instance, they don't feed on food like we do, so they like attach to whatever emotions that we feel. Like people feed different spirits based on what they feel. So if you have a group collectively coming together, it would create like an egregore.
Yeah, like there's this like certain board game I play, called Warhammer 40K, and in that, like, basically it's like this, dystopian future. Sorry. And the leader of mankind is called the Emperor of Mankind, and he's this like really powerful psyker. Like this sort of like he uses like psychic abilities rather than magic and things like that. It's more like genetically powered. But since a lot of people play this game and they and they play this character and they write about this character a lot, do you think that this character just exists in the ether, or does it have to be that like people have to like have a consistent like belief of something, or is it just the normal like just daily thought of, oh, I'm playing this, or I should do this with this character?
I mean, it kind of makes me think even like, like of the Slender Man killings with those like two girls. Slender Man was just like a internet urban legend. He didn't exist beforehand. But, people just start making up stories about him, posting them on the internet. And, you get these two girls who claim that they like had him talking to them, and I think both, ended up, one got more time than the other, and they both end up like, I think, having to go be like institutionalized, for mental health. But I think that, people probably, even if someone made up the Slender Man, I definitely think there was already something out there that attached to it, like it became Slender Man, even if he didn't exist. Or the other alternative to some of these like characters that people make that something can then assume the form of, is maybe it was based on something mythological that people don't really know much about. Because when you look back in time, there's so many different cultures, so many different societies that had lots of pantheons of different deities. And people don't even realize sometimes how, like, people who make video games, people who write, like, urban legends, a lot of them are really heavily into understanding mythology. Like, it's insane when you think about superheroes, like, how much of it, you know, mirrors mythology. So I think that could be it, too, or maybe even, this is, I guess, a third alternative to it, is maybe something that already exists influences that individual without their knowledge, and they feel they're creating something new that hasn't been, but it already has been as well.
Yeah. I mean, like with Dungeons and Dragons, I've actually been playing that quite a bit. It's been pretty fun. Been playing Dungeons and Dragons, and with the Marvel universe as well, it's that there is a heaven and hell, but there's also the different other like Valhalla and like the Limbo, and then you have hell with one L, and Olympus, like Mount Olympus and things like that. Do you think there's only those two realms other than like the sort of like spirit realm, just like obviously like with like ghosts and things like that?
I mean,
or is it like just
I think
or many?
I mean, from a theology standpoint, you know, within Christianity, I would say that those would be the main three realms, would be those three, because of what it says in the Bible otherwise. I mean, I have heard stories, you know, people who say, like, who believe in a flat earth, not flat earth, of a hollow earth, but that's not necessarily a realm as much as it is a place. But I kind of see it as a realm. I don't know. I'm just looking back, like, even in the chat, and I see, like, Self-Contented is saying demons can pose as anything you think of. And Angie Pittman said, yep, demons are chameleons. I mean, I mean, it does make me think about that, like, just how much people, it's like, even, it's just how, like, yeah, they really can pose or even influence us to think, like, we're coming up with new ideas and new characters that are, like, inspired by them. Let me ask you this, just because I know, like, I've had, like, paranormal experiences, and I know that you haven't had as many, but and this can go to anyone in the chat too, if you want to answer it. But I'll ask you, Ben, have you ever, like, looked, like, for instance, I know, like, you played Dungeons and Dragons, or, like, have you ever looked into anything paranormal and felt as if you felt different after doing so, or you felt like there was something with you or watching you ever?
Maybe not like when I've looked into something. I mean, it could just be, obviously I haven't really had much paranormal experience unless I've like gone after it. But whenever I've looked into something and I've just like sort of stepped away for a minute, I don't feel that there's anything with me. But there was a time when I was younger that I had a sort of like obsession with death, not the, you know, not the actual, not death itself, but I mean, as in death, the Grim Reaper. I was a very weird kid. And whenever like I would go to sleep, I'd have dreams about him, like, you know, being there with me, and you know, and I'd really have no dreams that would have me being chased by monsters or anything. It would seem very quiet and almost like I wouldn't be dreaming at all. And there'd be certain times where I'd like hear whispers and things like that, but apart from that, it's like really nothing.
That's interesting. I mean, I don't know too many people who have had, like, I guess, encounters, dreams, on a continual basis of the Grim Reaper in particular. Like, you know, you hear about Hatman, you hear about shadow people. Sometimes you hear people talk about the devil or about other spirits, but not the Grim Reaper so much. When did it all, like, end? Like, or did you notice it kind of fade away? Because you
like
said, like,
when I was
when you were a kid.
Yeah, like at least after 12, but my memory is a total blur. Like it goes from like I'll think that a song came out in like 2012 when it came out in 2014, and I'm like, wait, where did the time go? Where's I'm sure I was younger. But I'm sure it was just after 12 that it sort of went away. And I have gone into like looking into like the occult and things like that, but I've never went like to my friends and stuff like that and said, "Oh, you should go and try this," or "Oh, I need to find more people like who like this stuff or who know more about this." I would just sort of like look at him like, interesting. And then like obviously I've told you about the time that I went going after for something at least paranormal, and it was sort of, I mean, it was overwhelming but underwhelming at the same time because Sting, yeah, like the thing happened, and I felt this huge rush of adrenaline, but uh nothing ever happened after that.
Interesting.
It's I've always led like a very like mundane spiritual sort of life. I mean, my mum and my gran are more into that stuff, and so is my auntie. But I've either been very fortunate or unfortunate to not be as so.
Yeah, kind of going like back, I guess, to like what I asked you, kind of like when you were talking about the Grim Reaper, and even like just like when looking stuff up. I don't
Yeah.
know, just kind of taking a step back. I was just gonna say that for some reason, I don't know why it is with me, like certain things, why certain spiritual experiences have happened more to me than maybe other people that I know. I mean, there's people I meet that they make the things that I've experienced look like they never happened because I mean they experience stuff all the time.
Yeah.
I mean like I don't know what it is, but sometimes for me people love like when I do videos on paranormal topics because a lot of them can relate or people are just fascinated by it even if they've never had a single experience.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have to take a step back from it because I feel like as I'm looking stuff up, weird stuff happens to me either on like while I'm looking it up or afterwards. Like there have been times when I've covered certain topics and I usually like nowadays I'll set the videos, like I'll schedule them so they'll upload at 12 a.m. Central Time on Wednesday so I don't have to stay up late or worry about doing it when I wake up. Um, and right after I like have finished a video and I'm feeling pretty okay about it and it has anything to do with the paranormal, I feel like I'll have insomnia that night really bad. And sometimes I've even felt like attacked afterwards. Or like I'll go like out, like whenever I used to be able to walk my dog, I can't really walk him anymore because he has like arthritis.
Yeah.
And I'd encounter just the weirdest people or the weirdest things would just happen. And it makes me wonder, like, about certain things. Like, I'd almost want to back off looking up certain stuff. And I mean, I've always tried to pray and, pray for protection and even pray for guidance on anything I say. But I do wonder about that. Like, people that do kind of even make up some of these stories, even the ones that don't believe, like, if it does open doors in their life to some abnormal stuff, even if they don't see it as supernatural, maybe bad stuff just starts happening to them. Like,
Yeah.
maybe people around them start getting sick, or they get sick, or there's freak accidents. And for some reason, maybe some spirits like to mess with some people more than others when they mess around with them. Because it seems like some people, they dabble and they don't really see anything, and then other people dabble and it's like their whole life falls apart.
Yeah.
I mean,
Or
I would always
it just all
advise
changes.
never to dabble at all, but I've seen there's people that really do, their life just completely just kaplop. Other people, they like played with Ouija boards and it doesn't look like anything happened to them. But maybe something did, they just don't see it, I guess. Maybe it's not as apparent.
Yeah. And especially on the internet, like you never obviously like every story on the internet, if you don't know who it's from, or like you have no idea like who it is, like the story is a big like hit or miss if it's real or not. But from what I've seen, like if even half of them are true, some of this stuff is crazy. Like there's certain techniques for people dealing with poltergeists or ghosts or whatever have been so like, because obviously you have the traditional methods of, you know, bringing over like a priest or something like that, or like getting holy water, or, you know, sage and silver and things like that.
Yeah.
Some people are crazy. Like this one thing, I think I talked to you about it. I might have said this to someone else, but this guy basically was like, he had like paranormal activity, you know, in his house, and he like heard like footsteps get near to him, so he poured holy water over himself and started punching the air.
Oh my god, yeah,
and started to like basically all he could like hear was like him like breaking the wind, because this guy seemed to be like a very like this like a gym bro guy. Like he was very like, he had like, you know, he had a weight room and stuff. So
wow.
He was like punching, and he swears to his friend that like I hit something fleshy a few times. That this guy just goes out and just does some, he like almost like the mental ignorance or fortitude to just start swinging for no other reason than he thought it was like an, you know, like at first he thought it was like an animal or an intruder, because he doesn't believe in, you know, supernatural stuff. But then, you know, more weird things start to happen. He's like, oh, okay. And so after that, he starts doing he just goes, like, he seems fine, but he goes, like, insane. Like, it seems like the spirits in the house were very scared of him, because after that, he started, like, punching holes in the wall and, like, acting really insane to make anything that had any sort of, like, I don't know, like, emotion, like, any, like, emotions or any, like, sort of, like, anything to do with his house, to be so scared of the man to just not deal with it. And he started, like, you know, bringing dead snakes in, and just like, or like he like basically used the Ouija board as like a cutting board, things like that. It's crazy stuff.
Do you think there's the potential that the man could have been possessed though by then? Just because he sounds like he lost his mind, like punching.
I mean, you could say that, but again, like he is like he's just like very like he like from the way the guy was talking about him, like his like friend, he seemed to be fine, but he seemed to be like dealing it in a way that he was just like sticking a middle finger to everything in the room, and he was just like, I'm here. Like I might as well just like you're gonna have to deal with me. Like it's not that he's trapped inside with them; they're trapped inside with him, sort of thing. And I'm like, some of this stuff is just crazy. But again, like even if that's like a total lie, the sort of thing that the guy is saying, that if you have this sort of almost unimaginable like ignorance or just insane mental fortitude, that you can just be like, I don't want spirits living in my house, you get out, or you're like basically being trapped inside with me. Is, I mean, again, like I don't know much about demonology, but I think if I was a demon, I wouldn't want to deal with someone who's giving me that much hassle. Like, I'm like, I don't know about this person. Maybe I'll go. Maybe I'll go visit someone next door. You know,
Yeah.
maybe that's what you should do. You should just pour holy water over your hands and just start swinging in the air. You know, go all Rambo style, and just start like.
It does make me wonder though, because like he got like I guess when he had his encounter, he could still move. I mean, I guess I know people that I've talked to who like I think even back to like the stories like my dad tells about some people he knows that encountered different spirits or different supernatural experiences. And even though they were awake, because like I think of sleep paralysis, you know, you're sleeping, so people could say it's a result of you being frozen in your sleep.
Hmm.
But he tells like the story of like his his grandmother and his cousin when they encountered like this witch, which it's so weird to me the way witches work in Mexico because it doesn't seem like the way we think of witches here where they're people. I guess some
Yeah.
people look at witches like people. I look at them as being regular people who just are able to do supernatural things because of the deals they make with the devil.
Yeah.
But Mexico, it's almost like they're supernatural beings, like the way they're able to like shapeshift and like travel like light oars. And he said like when his grandmother and his cousin encountered this witch, they both like couldn't move. Like it's like they saw the light coming toward them and they both like froze, like their bodies paralyzed. And they were
Yeah.
wide awake. And I'm like, I've heard stories like that where people say like when the spirit got close to them, it paralyzed them. And it just makes me wonder why some people they managed they do get to paralyze and what others they don't paralyze them and they let them just be able to run or be able to move.
Maybe it's due to like almost like no, this is very like obviously just very basic, and I don't know if anyone even watches anime here, but it's like sort of like a power level like Dragon Ball Z, like you know.
You're gonna have to explain this to me because I didn't really watch Dragon
no.
Ball.
You didn't have a childhood? What is this? Very disappointed. The it's like you know how much energy you have, how much ki you have, like you know it's like the amount of energy you have compared to the spirit, demon, whatever they have, they could maybe paralyze you. You know, profit. Like I don't know. Like it's like I don't know if that would even be a good thing. Like would like do you feel like you have like a certain amount of like I don't know like will or energy or like anything like when you have like not obviously like sleep paralysis, but like whenever you have like a experience that isn't like when you're asleep, like when you're like more conscious, do you feel like weak or do you feel like you can like deftly move or
Like when sleep paralysis happens.
no it's like if have you ever had have you had like experiences when you're more conscious, when you're more able, like when you're standing or like when you're able to move, and then you just do you feel like you have enough energy to move? Do you have do you or is it more that you like freeze in the moment and it's just
Oh, like
that's
have I
it?
ever had an experience where like I feel like sorry, can you re-explain that? I'm not
It's like as you were saying, like they encountered the thing, but they weren't asleep; they were awake.
yeah.
And whenever you talk about like experiences, you're always you were asleep and then
What was awakened, yeah.
yeah you have you ever had experiences where it's like you're just awake and then you freeze, or is it
I mean, I've had the closest I can say came to that was like on falling asleep and having sleep paralysis. Like I was going to sleep, and before I could get to sleep, I got like my muscles tensed up, and I was paralyzed, and I could hear all these crazy sounds and sometimes see things. But I've never had the experience like them where I was just like walking, and then something happened and like I couldn't move. Like to me, that'd be scary if I was wide awake and I just like got paralyzed in place. Not even
That would.
no, like, when they talked about that, I was like thinking about sleep paralysis, but they were wide awake, like because they were walking somewhere when this happened. So I don't know, but I've never like had a encounter with something like that manifested itself like physically in front of me either. While I was like wide awake. I mean, I've seen shadows dart past me when I'm awake, but they like it's like they're trying to hide themselves from being seen, but nothing like confront me in the open. So
yeah,
I mean, and the crazy thing about what they said is, I mean, this was like a common occurrence where they lived because like women used to actually be afraid, and not just women, but like parents used to be afraid in their small town that they lived in about like these witches like sucking the blood of like infants. And there were a lot of babies that did die in that town. Like there was actually a study done with anthropologists that went to that area, to that community, and other communities within Mexico, like little small towns. And there were babies that did die from blood loss. So it does give some validity to like these vampire witches, even though it sounds crazy to people, you know, that live, you know, in America or even in Europe, because people don't really believe in that stuff. But I don't know, it was a common thing, but it seems like these occurrences have gone down. But even like the concept of like how these witches came to be, because it was believed that these were regular women you would see in the community every day. Like you would never question like them. But at night or in the morning, they had supernatural power where they could detach their feet. It's weird. They could detach their feet, and they were able to like almost like astral project and do a bunch of harm to people. And it was considered something that was passed down generationally, like if it ran in the family.
that's a very specific ability. I'll detach my feet. For what like what?
Yeah.
Why?
I mean, it's like, and they like, it was, I mean, it's really crazy. It's hard to believe the fact there was blood loss found in the community. That's what's really weird about it too.
Yeah.
But it's kind of interesting because with like modernity, you know, because, you know, Mexico hasn't progressed at the same rate as like, you know, the United States. But now that there's more technology that's been introduced, you know, people are, you know, this whole globalization thing, it's bringing a lot of nations that are developing more to like where first world nations were like in the 80s and 90s. There's less of these occurrences happening. So it does seem like as there's more modernity, there's a decrease of outward supernatural encounters. And that is interesting to me. But I also think it has to do with people also giving up a lot of their beliefs or not dabbling in it as well.
Yeah. It's like the law of attraction. Like if you don't give it credence, it'll go away. Or if you think about it too much, you know, instead of you finding it, it'll find you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting. Like with vampires, it's always the same, but that like detaching the feet, like that's a very like specific thing to mention. Like, why is it so that like these feet these like feet that weigh like maybe a pound will weigh me down?
Well, maybe I have an answer to that from a different culture. So like I've read up on because like I read up on this pastor's work. I can never pronounce his name, but he has a book called like Dream Criminals. You know, he's from, I don't remember which West African nation. And you know, I look kind of at like some of these experiences, even like that come from like these regions, and given my ancestry, maybe that's why I experience stuff even here in America, because I come from two cultures where crazy stuff is still happening in those communities today.
Mm.
And it just follows me because, of that. But even in like West Africa, it was like where people are known to astral project like witches and like bother people in their sleep. He talked about how some people would sleep with their feet like on the wall because they believed that would anchor their body to this world while they went out to astral project. And so maybe that's why they detach their feet also in the vampire witches in Mexico, because they feel like it anchors their body to this earth so nothing can take it while they're gone. As weird as that may sound, like it's a rule within astral projection. I mean, I've never heard anyone like else really talk much about that, but it kind of does parallel a little bit, because I know that's one thing I talked to a friend, and he had I talked to a friend who had a friend. Sounds so funny. And his friend, he had an experience where he kept waking up outside of his body, and he would see like all these like shadow figures around, just like tearing at his body, like just trying to get into his body. And he was freaking out, and this kept happening to him like 10 times during the night. So it does seem like when people astral project, they run that risk of something trying to take over their body, kind of like Insidious. So maybe that's why they want to anchor something, like put my feet on the wall so I know I'll find my way back to my body, or detach my feet.
Maybe that's what you should do. Just like push your bed up to a wall and just put your feet there, and it's like, no, nothing can get me now. My feet are on a wall. That's such a weird like technique. It's like you would think it's like more like, if you want to anchor yourself, you want to like, maybe sleep like, like have your feet touching the floor, or like you use a certain like natural element as like a sort of like maybe under your pillow or something like that to like have like an aura around you or something like that. But no, it's like put your feet to the wall. That's such a like it's like a very like it's like fiction is stranger than fact. It's like people would think they'd have like maybe like some like crazy Mayan technique or something, but no. Hold up right there. Just put your feet on that wall and you'll be okay.
Yeah, or detach your feet, which to me is still so weird, because it's like, how do you detach your feet without like amputating yourself? And even it's interesting because even with like the kind of going back to Mexico with the whole witch thing, a lot of people in the community would like accuse people in the other town of being the witches. So like they point fingers, because these are really small towns, like, oh, it's you're the women in your town are doing this, and there'd be a lot of finger pointing about like who was who, but no one knew entirely. And there's a town like not too far from where like my dad is from. It might be another state though. But it's like witch capital, where like witches from all over the world come to celebrate. Like, so yeah, there's just a lot of crazy stuff that goes on there. But it does make me wonder though, like, just like what makes different people's encounters, so different. Like it's kind of interesting, the Dragon Ball Z analogy that you use. And I do think faith matters. Like I saw that Josh S brought up in the chat, even like maybe sometimes spirits to choose people based on what they believe as well. Like maybe they realize that, say someone's skeptical of them, that it wouldn't be advantageous of them to reveal themselves to that individual, because it might make that person then seek out, God or higher power. Unless maybe they want to indoctrinate that person into the occult. Like maybe they're like, hey, I want this skeptic to be like a high level high priest or high priestess. Maybe then they would reveal themselves to them. But otherwise, maybe they would choose not to, because that could lead them down a path of like searching in faith. Whereas people maybe like, I guess like myself, I've never had a day where I haven't thought of the supernatural. It's always been like something I believed in, even before I had Christianity. I just always saw it as very real. So I guess they didn't have anything to lose with showing me the supernatural, dark or light. It was always just a part of what I believed in. So I definitely think belief has a lot to do with it too. Even though I also think sometimes they do it too to drive certain people crazy as well. Like, I mean, because, some people, they end up going crazy from their spiritual encounters, especially if they don't see a way out.
Mm. I mean, there's the thing is that like humans are so unpredictable, especially the fact that like say demons they pick someone, but that someone is like that because in the general population I think it's like 1 to 2% like of people are psychopaths, like truly like full psychopaths. Like imagine like they imagine like if demons are they like people who work like a 9 to 5 job, they have to like get a certain quota in at the end of like the I don't know lunar cycle. Who knows like what they go on, and they just pick one person. That one person is actually like this psychopath and starts to research how to kill this demon, and somehow does. There's so many unpredictable things that a human could do with information of the supernatural is real.
Yeah.
Like someone could go insane, someone could go find God, someone could go to the occult, someone could just straight up try and just fight the demon right there and then. Like it's just the person just stands there, is like, whoa, what's happening? And then in the sort of fight or flight, response goes to fight it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there are people that are still going to hold to their skepticism, even with encountering some demons. Like, I know it sounds crazy, but I'm sure there are people out there that would be like, no, I still don't believe it. No, it was just a dream. Like, they come out of haunted house and they still, like, it was all a dream.
Yeah, it's
Or,
like
it was Project Bluebeam.
there's this episode of this movie about Batman John Constantine, like the sort of like more supernatural person in the DC universe, Constantine. And Batman, these like Reapers were like, circling this man who is like near dying, and they go over to Batman. It's like, this man has avoided death. He frustrates us so, and he just like he doesn't see them, and he just goes boo, and they all like back away. And he doesn't care about the supernatural, so he's very like he doesn't care about anything. Like a sorcerer is like shooting energy blasts at him, and he's like, this won't hurt me. It's very that thing of, as you said, like that, just keeping the sort of skepticism of there is nothing as a supernatural, there is nothing that's magic, that's magical. It's just all straight straight science.
Yeah. I mean, since we're on that topic, the whole like all of this, that's what like inspired like me to write like one of my books that I wrote that I'll put out like in June of this year, like late June on PTSD Awareness Day, because of the topic of the book is called Skepticism. It's about a guy that is basically having what you think of as supernatural encounters, but he's an atheist and he's in denial about it because he is so, hyper rational that, he doesn't want to believe. And then, it gets into his, personal life of why he's that way, like how he became that way in general. And the book is, his struggle between like trying to figure out, is what's happening to him a result of his own like past trauma, from having post-traumatic stress disorder, or is it a result of something supernatural, which is the last thing he wants to believe. But he also doesn't want to believe it that he's mentally ill either, because his life was normal before he went to college and met this girl.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, just because we were on the topic, it just reminded me of like what I was writing. And like I said, I'll talk more about it when I get closer to that, to June, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, that's. I mean, I thought for a minute you were describing me, but then I was like, wait a minute, I don't have PTSD. What do you mean? I'm not. I mean, I could. I don't know. But I mean, it's very interesting because that's what I've said to a lot of other people, that especially with doing, like, especially like, looking into the subjects you do and things like that, that having a healthy amount of skepticism is absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Because you can look down a certain rabbit hole and then be like, this doesn't line up. This doesn't make sense. And then you just like go out and you're like, oh, okay. This doesn't fit at all. This or like whenever people like jump into like, something that they think, oh, this company or this person, they're dealing, with the devil and Satan and things like that, when maybe if you look at it from like a common sense view, that it's like, but why?
Yeah.
What would be their benefit? And that's how I sort of take conspiracy theories, and that's why I don't usually go for things that involve a lot of digging, because I know that once I get too down far, like the rabbit hole, I'll just be like, I'm lost. I don't know where to go. And I would just I wouldn't be able to finish it. I wouldn't be able to be like, okay, this is what I know, this is what I think the conclusion is. I like things to like fit together and have like be tied together. Because I mean, apart from conspiracy theories, I like to like theorize and like, games and books and things like that. When like maybe a part of like someone's backstory doesn't line up with a certain event in their life, and they're like, how did this happen? Or what are they mentioning here? It's like certain conspiracy, like the Illuminati is like one big tapestry that is made by like different little paintings, but then someone tries to put a painting into a slot and they're like, that fits there, it doesn't fit anywhere else. I'm like, I don't think that fits there. And then I'm suddenly the person who is actually in the painting. I actually work for the Illuminati because I say one thing is different than another. It's very easy to get wrapped in your own world than sort of taking a step back and be like, does this even fit?
Yeah, no, I totally know what you mean. Even like you said earlier, the importance of like, I guess, like, a healthy amount of skepticism or even healthy amount of critical thinking. Like, even because I think the thing is, even when you're looking into like anything, it doesn't have to even be a conspiracy theory. You should always make sure whatever you're looking into, the facts line up, everything is, you're not just being fed, lies, but also you shouldn't be so skeptical that you turn a blind eye to everything either.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's like you have to have a healthy amount, and that's like kind of what critical thinking is asking the right questions and finding the right answers. And, I mean, some things though are beyond explanation though.
Yeah, it's like, while water is good for you, if you drink too much of it, you'll drown. While you need it to survive and it's good for you, too much of anything, I mean, I know it's like really cliche, but the thing is, if too much of anything can be bad for you, although it might not seem so, especially chocolate and different other foods.
Did you hear, just like this is kind of off topic, but did you hear that they were saying that chocolate might not be around by a certain year? And then I think somebody came back and said, oh, no, it actually will be around. I'm just imagining a world without chocolate.
I don't know if I'd be able to survive. I'd crumble.
It's like there's a revolution because there's no chocolate.
Actually,
the last piece of chocolate just got ate.
I mean, sort of segue, having that, like, the sort of thing about like fresh water being not readily available, like in the next 100 years, or sooner, is very real, especially with the food and water and energy that people might not be able to be housed and fed and stuff like that. And like companies are like taking in like water and like fresh water and things like that, buying it up. Chocolate. If chocolate just got erased, right?
Yeah.
God just decided, you know what? Chocolate is not for you lowly humans. This is only my treat. How dare you? Took it away. I would crumble. I would be like, no. I would find my way to the stairs of heaven, and I would demand my chocolate. I would demand.
I mean, I think it's because people are, it's like anything where like they're over, too many people want it. It's kind of like it's kind of like the rainforest, and how they're cutting down trees so they could raise more cattle, so more people can eat beef. And it's only going to select few people in the world when you consider all the people that aren't getting any of that beef or any of that juicy steak. And then you're hurting oxygen levels from doing this as well. But people want to eat. I mean,
people want to eat. That's just the line right there. People want to eat. Don't need to even go any further.
What happens when people want to eat? They can't eat anymore of what they want because they destroyed the earth for what they want. Not only that, but kind of going to what you were saying about like the water, even. I mean, it's crazy to think about. I mean, I definitely think there is, a lot of this is happening because you do have people that want to eat, and you have companies who are going in and doing things. And then I think, sadly, some of it, I have to say this as a, conspiracy theorist or truther, that, some of it is just intentional poisoning too, like air pollution from chemtrails, or even the stuff you're putting in the water. Like, lead coming up in water. Coming up in water.
Alex Jones, that man. No, but I do get what you mean. Like, I mean, while I haven't really seen much, at least recently, about FEMA camps, but that's the sort of like same sort of like ballpark we're in. And would if the chocolate goes, would the chocolate be imported to the FEMA camps? Would you have special resources in the FEMA camps to attract people there?
I always think that way. Like, I think that most Americans wouldn't go to the FEMA camp if you just said, like, oh, it's going to turn into some type of labor camp. But if you say, like, hey, we got Wi-Fi here, and or we got, like, chocolate, or,
Hold up. You're making it sound too good now. You're making it sound... If it's got Wi-Fi, I'm sorry. I'm going to leave, like, my family.
Oh, my God. What if you
have Wi-Fi?
And then like this like gate just comes down, and like it's like we don't got Wi-Fi here.
Oh no, I've been tricked.
Because I feel like they have to do something like that.
I need Wi-Fi to watch your videos. Well, if you're making them, I guess, in like the end times, I guess, getting that nice ad revenue in the end times,
Yeah.
Getting the. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, yeah, they're definitely gonna use stuff, I think, to entice people. Or either that, or like there's like a huge calamity, like say like a nuke, or there's like such bad natural disasters that people are starving, and then they say, "Hey, we got a little bread here, or we got a little bit of meat," and people will rush there as fast as possible. I don't think like anyone would just go without any like incentive. But I just said Wi-Fi because I feel like a lot of millennials, a lot of generations, even a lot of Gen Xers would want that Wi-Fi.
Yeah. Look, I need my updates from Mario. That's I need I need I need to know which celebrities are in secret societies and who isn't, and I need to know. Well, obviously, I need to know what the Kardashians are up to. Obviously, that's like a big thing in my life. No, but it's like on a sort of serious note, like it would be kind of it like obviously like having incentives to go somewhere. The only thing is like, would they do it like that, or would they just go the route of, look, there's this train leaving in 20 minutes. You should hop on. You're going to a great place. And then think, see, if someone said that to me, I would be like, wait a minute. I think I've seen this before.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can trust these people. They're wearing armbands. This doesn't seem right.
But as sad as that is, and like as much history as there are people that would disregard history if they were desperate.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, they'd be like, well, it's different this time. This is America, and so I mean, it is sad to think how they would use like. I mean, it would be history repeating itself. It's kind of like when you think about it, it kind of reminds me of like, I guess the discussion I'm going to have like tomorrow in my class, because I have to, as a sociology major, I have to break things down, kind of like I have to do here. But like, it's over like how society is like, it's stable, but yet it's changing. And part of the trick is making us believe that things aren't changing by doing certain rituals and things to keep it looking as if things are staying the same, but really things are slightly changing. And when you think about it, a lot of that changing but remaining stable, like they're not opposites, but they're actually working together. A lot of that has to do kind of with history repeating itself. Because there's a lot of things that they seem really new and people get up in arms about, and it's like, wait a minute, this has happened before. Like, go back to 1930. Go back to 1800 this, go back here.
Yeah.
This has happened before. And, even in the Bible, there's nothing new under the sun. Solomon said that, and it's really true. But sometimes I feel like it is easy for people to forget. And that's kind of like what you were saying even earlier on, that some people, they either don't study history or history is, ignored, erased, revised. So that happens too. But there is kind of a shortage on people who understand history.
Yeah, definitely.
It's kind of sad. It makes me think of those like videos I used to see by different YouTube channels where they'd ask like, people that were like teenagers or in their 20s, like, do you know like who won this battle? And they wouldn't know. But I would just, in good faith, think to myself, I'm hoping that they just found these people and they just cut out the worst answers. And this wasn't the bulk of the people they stopped on the street.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely like that, like where I saw this video where it's like they go to this like college campus in America and they're like I think it's like a university campus, and like where's Ireland, and they point to like Poland, and I'm like, what's going on? Like I'm sure we figured out geography hundreds of like thousands of years ago.
Well, I mean, when you consider the lead and fluoride in the water, the chemtrails, the electromagnetic radiation,
I mean,
the mind-numbing television, the drugs people are using.
I mean, you say that, It's either that or just people are just really dumb.
Well, I'm saying that stuff could make people,
Yeah,
not be able to
obviously.
think clearly because, like, their brain gets fried from those chemicals. And if it doesn't get fried from those chemicals, they turn on the TV and it gets fried, and then they do some drugs on top of it.
And also the fact that like America is very focused on itself a lot of
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah.
And like I know a lot of like especially like I wouldn't consider myself European, but as like Europeans, like I mean like mainland Europe, that they'd be like, oh, these dumb Americans, they do not know nothing, nothing. But then when a certain some like crisis happens, oh, Americans, you're here, bonjour, like it's a thing of like your country is very powerful, but the education system doesn't seem to be
Doing very well.
very well. Well, at least not for the majority of your nation.
I would say that that's the case because I can't remember the stat, but I remember seeing that American education was ranked pretty low for a first world nation, especially when it's supposed to be the leader of the free world. It was not doing so well. And I mean, I think the problem too is, and I was talking to my brother about this because like he's studying history, but it seems like people complain in America how like bad a lot of people are doing with math and science, and that is a problem. A lot of people's math and science skills aren't up to par. But by kind of shifting the focus to like getting people to be more into STEM, it's kind of like push people away from the humanities. So like they're not coming out being the greatest writers or the greatest most knowledgeable on history or communication. Because I mean, yeah, people communicate, but if you sit in your room all day or you only know how to write text messages, but you can't write like papers, that can be a problem too, or even communicate with people.
Yeah, it's like how people are saying that in the next like 50 years, like people will just be like text speaking will just become like near just codes. Like it'll just be like, oh, like just certain letters in certain areas, and then it's just like it'll be like a more dumbed down version of like English or a certain language, and it'll just like start getting to more like almost like just like cryptography. It's just like just codes.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, though, cryptography is kind of like going back to the days of, cuneiform text. Like, it makes me think back to the ancient world when they communicated with pictures. That's what it's like society is going backwards. So, like, because now I speaking of Domino's, because I think Nick C said he had Domino's to eat.
Oh, don't.
I think I saw like a commercial once where you could use like emojis to order pizza.
Yeah,
and
it's
I think
like
more businesses will do that.
World War III happens, and then just like everything goes back to like ancient like caveman times, and you just thousands of years later, new humans start to look into the caves, and all they see is just like emojis.
Yeah,
it's like, what does this mean?
Emojis. I love emojis, but it's the new. It's basically like people communicating with pictures or memes.
Yeah.
Memes too, or GIF. It's what people used to do back in the day, except it's just more high high tech, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Or even like you said, cryptography.
That'd be funny. Is like just like seeing these like really like maybe like like a new society of humans, and it's just like they like go excavating, and all they see is like these like carvings of emojis and like different memes, and they're like, what does this all mean?
Oh
my god.
I'm just imagining them finding that, like, I shouldn't say this, but I imagine them finding like the poop emoji, and they're like, what is this? I remember like going into like the mall like a year ago, and like they had like coffee mug, cups, pillows, and I'm just like, why would you want to lay on this? Like, it's not that funny, it's not that cute. So I'm just imagining like some archaeologists finding that, like, what does this mean? Is this
it's just like, what is this? Oh
So,
my god, it's just like someone just trying to like decipher this like just simple thing, like, oh, it's just like this, like just the face with like, you know, the thumbs up or something like that. It's like, what does this mean? Well, what does the thumbs up, you know, signify? This, you know, it's like it's oh, that's just a great
and I
image.
mean, and I
Uh
mean, even like I think about this just because I use a tablet. You know, like I like we all like tablets. We use styluses, and you know, the ancient scribes used to use tablets with styluses made of papyrus, and they wrote on
yeah,
clay. So everything is just like repeating itself again. I mean, that's why history is so important, because you understand history, you're like, "Ah, we've seen this before. We've seen this before.
yeah. Basically, like it's maybe I should, maybe I should just go out there and just like go out with like the you know, the stylus and like the just this papyrus tablet with clay, and be like, yo, this is the new trend, okay? This is my tablet. I can do a lot of stuff on this. I can write. I can write. It's just I think like it's always like the human nature is to, like, you know, when inspiration happens, it's oh my god, in chat just someone put up the like certain emojis and said, what did I just say?
I mean,
uh Thinking, computer, phone. Oh,
pizza.
the
It
pizza.
well,
I ordered pizza on the telephone and it arrived on time, or it's like I ordered.
you probably figured that out. See,
Yo,
I'm not the greatest at
I,
deciphering it.
I'm a genius.
You can
I'm
be
a
the
genius
future,
guy.
you can be a 21st century archaeologist.
I can I can be a I can be like this like crypto. I can be a cryptologist for emojis. What does this like? What does this mean? But yes, I've now reached a higher level of consciousness.
Oh,
To
and he said spot on. Josh,
yes,
you got it, man.
um, I shall now, instead of going down events managing, I shall now finding a new career in deciphering emojis, um, making sure old people can use them correctly,
You know,
and
you do realize that if you know time permits, when we're old, the old people that know how to use emojis, it'd be a weird internet when you have like grandparents on the internet.
when I was a kid, I had emojis. I had to use a computer screen. I didn't have your implanted hologram, you know, TVs. I don't know what will come in the future. It'll just be like they'll just like have these like images projected into their eyes, and they'll just like see it out into the world or something. I don't know. That would be great. But I think that's what'll happen is like when we get older, we'll be like, oh, we used to have, you know, all this stuff, and then it's just like, I remember that sort of thing. We used to use pictures as funny, you know, funny captions. They were called memes, and it's just like it's like,
It
oh,
is,
grandpa, we don't use that word anymore. I'm like,
and then
you
they
know,
have like hologram memes
they just like project
or
memes onto
virtual
like
reality.
billboards, like with their mind. And it's like, I remember when memes just used to be on either paper or the computer screen. And I've like still got my like old like desktop PC. It's
That
just like sitting there
it would look like a.
collecting dust.
It could actually go in a museum. You know. Actually, we have like a minute left. Any last words, Ben, or anyone in the chat?
Just you know, live your life, guys. Don't 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 let your ego get the best of you. Always you know, take in, you know, be humble. You know, have hubris. You know, I guess that's motivational enough. Am I Was that good enough?
Yeah, I mean, it was nice having you on, Ben, and thank you everyone in the chat. I guess I'll talk to you guys next Monday for the live stream. Check out this coming Wednesday's video, and watch out for 2 weeks from now if you're interested in talking about any dreams or experiences that you've had related to dreams. Email me or message me before the 26th of February. But it was a joy talking to you all, and God bless. Have a good night.